Happy Monday! Welcome to SJU. We're going hostless today, and as such, we're going to start with our favorite rock anthem. Each of us at once choosing our own. 1, 2, 3, go!
If you want to dance and sleep all night,
we did it! That's how you start a show.
No, Dan?
Dan's been
I'm
up all
far too
night
tired
long.
for
Dan's been up all night long. Unfortunately, we are going to talk about the hostless Oscars, which, frankly, was not the problem at the Oscars this year. That worked out just fine.
I thought the host might have been the problem all along.
I think that we actually located the source. Well, hello. Yeah, that's the interesting takeaway is that the show seemed to run much smoother. It felt like it was fast. It wrapped up mostly kind of on time.
If they hadn't been greedy with their ad money, it would have. We were watching it last night, and I looked at my watch, and it was like, well, Pacific time. It was 7:25. And they had 6 awards left. And I was like, well, they're going to land this thing on time. But the last 6 awards are just like award commercial, award commercial, award commercial, award commercial. If they hadn't stuck in an extra commercial break after every award, they would have landed that sucker at 3 hours.
They had to get out a couple more weird Walmart commercials.
Yeah, important to get those Walmart dollars. We want to talk about that because truly weird commercials, like very odd marketing.
Yes.
But first we're going to talk about the awards themselves. But Joe, don't let us forget. It's on you, Joe Starr.
It always is.
Yeah, there you go. So we will talk about the hits, the misses, what we liked about the show, what we didn't, but let's just run over the major categories right now. And the thing that everyone is talking about, which we talked about on Friday, and it felt like, according to the prognosticators, that this may in fact happen, and it did. And we'll talk about why it did. Best Picture goes to Green Book. Free Solo. Yeah, it wasn't even nominated. It was a
crazy night.
Yeah, it was like the weirdest. But the weirder part is it was actually Solo itself that won. Green Book takes Best Picture. Director is Alfonso Cuarón for Roma. Actor Rami Malek for Bohemian Rhapsody. Actress Olivia Colman for The Favorite.
Surprise win.
That was a little bit of a surprise. Not totally crazy, but a little bit of surprise. And a delightful speech. Lady Gaga to you. Supporting actor goes to Mahershala Ali. Supporting actress Regina King. Original screenplay Green Book. Adapted screenplay Black Klansman. Foreign language film Roma, which that's when we knew it wasn't going to win Best Picture. Animated. Well, I thought maybe it would be this crazy historic event after Alfonso won for cinematography. Animated feature Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Yay!
That is one of the few. We were talking about this last night. That is one of the few times I've ever seen in the Oscars where a late contender legitimately comes in and upsets. Because that was like, Incredibles 2.
Yeah.
Going into November is like, or December even, is like, Incredibles 2. Yeah. And then Spider-Verse came out, and it just actually was able to build momentum and actually pull off the upset.
Yeah, and it was correct. I think. I mean, confession, I haven't seen Mariah yet, but I love that movie. I love Spider-Verse. Sound editing goes to Bohemian Rhapsody, which a lot of people had some things to say about that. Visual effects goes to First Man. Film editing, Bohemian Rhapsody, which is slightly befuddling once again. Original score, Black Panther. Original song, Shallow, obviously. Also, did you notice how everyone was like, they're really in love, they're doing it? And it's like, they are actors, they're doing the acting.
They're doing it, Roth.
With the acting.
Well, we had an award on the Grouchies called the They're Doing It Right award, which we gave it to Lady Gaga. They're doing it.
I mean,
they're so doing it. They are.
Are they doing it?
Oh my God, are they doing it? No, they're doing it.
One of them represents Queens, and one was raised out of Brooklyn, because they're doing it well, Roth. They're doing it very well.
Yeah,
that's my song.
I love that.
I am representing Queens, and I was raised in Brooklyn. Thank you.
Your first dance at your wedding is going to be beautiful.
Yeah, no, I was at a party, and that moment happened, and I said, and I can't say it or we'll get demonetized, but I go, they... And
are having intercourse.
I don't agree. I think I'm the lone one. We'll find out in comments that everyone agrees with you guys that they're doing it. Either way.
I never make eye contact
if you're not doing it.
It's a long night.
We haven't
I don't know what
slept.
to do.
It's a very long
I
night.
don't know where to look.
And I haven't slept. Just keep
Production
talking.
design, Black Panther, cinematography, Roma. This was a very historic moment for Alfonso Cuarón. Best director, best cinematographer, best. Costume designer, Black Panther, makeup and hairstyle, Vice, documentary feature, Free Solo. This is a great field in documentary this year, as well as foreign film. There's a lot of great categories outside of Best Picture, so I hope you guys watch all of those films that were nominated. But let's talk about it. What here, if anything, took you by surprise, Joe Starr?
Visual effects for First Man. I thought in that category there was a lot stacked against it. It wasn't necessarily a bad surprise to me because visual effects to me often feels like who had the most money to throw at a thing. And, you know, First Man was not made with Infinity War money, so applause to doing a lot with less. I thought that was really interesting. Green Book was not a surprise to me because I'm Loki. Those were really the big ones.
So Danielle, the big moments of the night were obviously Gaga and Bradley, who apparently are doing it, and I don't get it. But then there was also the Sam Jackson, Spike Lee hug, I think took all of us.
Yes.
Are they doing it?
Possibly.
They've been doing it for 30
Yeah.
years.
Okay.
If by it you mean being the best of friends.
Yes, exactly.
I appreciate how many people compared Spike Lee's outfit to Wario. I did really.
We were full Mr. Glass last night.
Yeah, we said it was a combination of Ralph Cramden, Prince,
Urza,
and
yeah.
Mr. Glass.
Waluigi. Sorry, before someone hits me in the comments. Waluigi.
Waluigi.
Did you have a favorite moment, a favorite
Fake
win?
nerd.
Any surprises for you?
Favorite win, Regina King. Favorite moment, the moment when Chris Evans, who is now the best Chris.
Thank you.
It's official.
Definitive proof.
Oh, Chris
you.
Pine would have done the
No,
same
no, no,
thing
no.
if he had been sitting there.
Definitive proof that Evans is the most superior Chris happened at the very beginning of the telecast.
And the great thing about that is if you watch that moment over, and what really struck it for me is that, like, he lent the arm. He didn't try to grab her or do anything.
Yes.
And then as she's going up the stairs, he's like, "Go, it's your moment," and like leads
Yes.
her away. He doesn't go
then-
any further than he needs to. He makes sure it's her moment while still being like a gentleman and not stealing it from her.
And he stumbles on stage and pees his pants.
Yeah.
He stumbles on stage
That-
and
Star
sees
is Born
fans.
style.
Thank you. I'm glad you've seen the light. Which Chris were you stumping for previously?
Well, for a while it was Pratt, but then I had to remember that this Pratt is not my Pratt of P&R Pratt. That Pratt is gone. Rest in peace, Thick Pratt. But that was my Pratt. So
Thick Pratt
that was
your
your Pratt.
Thick Pratt
You'd
was
have
my
to
Pratt.
prove to me that Hemsworth would not do the same thing in this situation. I'm not going to give Evans the crown just because he was in the right place at the right time to be a very gallant
Are you
hero.
not watching Game of Thrones? That's half of getting the crown.
Well, I'm still House Hemsworth.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. House Evans all the way. Team Cap, Free Solo, Dan Murrell. Let's say more words. Were you surprised by anything?
Olivia Colman did surprise me only because it was such a sort of Gaga close. Glenn Close was sort of like the sure thing,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
a lot of people were like, well, if there's an upset, it could be Lady Gaga, and she was so good, but also I think the perception was that she was part of a triumvirate in that film, and you know what, she had about as much screen time as Rachel Weisz and Emma Stone, and was it a lead or were they all three leads? And so there's so much discussion around it, so it surprised me that she won, but I was so happy that she did.
Yeah.
I love when an
speech.
actor like her, who has really worked from just from the ground up. Not that Gaga was fine in A Star Is Born. I thought she was a phenomenal performer, and I thought the performance was pretty good. But if she'd won for me, and then Glenn Close is sitting there having not won, and even an actor like Olivia Colman, who's been doing this for a very long time, hasn't won, and she sort of has one role, and she gets the Oscar immediately. It's like, I'm glad to see a seasoned actor, and she was so just blown
She's
away
having so
by
much
it, and it was
fun.
such a
Yeah.
great moment.
Yeah.
I was very happy to see it.
Yeah.
Me too. First of all, I love The Favorite, and this gave it a little bit of attention. I talked to a friend yesterday. I keep doing my check-ins with people that are not in this business about the Oscars because I'm just curious about the perceptions. And she said what we all suspect. She goes, "Oh, my favorite thing about it is that there'll be movies I haven't even heard of, and then I see the description. She means like the package, and she'll then get interested and go see it. So this gave The Favorite a moment, which I think is really key. And Olivia Colman has been having so much fun. This whole, like, it's what you would hope that Annie would do in that experience, and I think it's because she is a journeywoman, and she knows this is her moment, and it's probably not coming back again. You never know, but she's just embracing it so joyfully. It's so much fun to watch her.
It's nice hearing a speech from someone who clearly doesn't think that this is ever a sure thing again.
Yes.
Yeah.
And every now and then you'll get a speech that's like, here's my usual thank yous. I'm here every year. I'm at least nominated. You know?
Yeah.
And this was a woman who this took her purely by surprise and was just grateful for the moment that she was living in right then. And that was really cool to watch.
Yeah, it's how you would hope anyone would feel in that situation, which I think a lot of times, I remember when Jennifer Connelly was nominated, I think for...
She won for A Beautiful Mind.
Beautiful Mind,
Yeah.
right? And it was almost like she had gotten so zen about it that all of the energy around it was
she was
completely
making her 40th acceptance
depleted.
speech.
Yeah, but it was just like there was no fire there at all, and like you would just hope that there would be fun in this.
Right.
Otherwise, what is the point of the Academy Awards?
Sure.
Now let's talk about why we're mad. We can talk about fun stuff too. You want to talk about the fun moments? Other than the Coleman, we think we touched on a lot of the fun moments.
Yeah, that was fun.
Talking
Yeah.
about funsies, it was
The
awesome
open was fun.
Do what?
The Open with
Yeah.
the ladies.
Yeah.
If they're gonna do
Funny.
a host, then that would be the
Those would be
only
the
way I
three.
would want to
Those
do
are-
it.
those are
Yeah.
three funny ladies.
They had really funny moments throughout, and they didn't have to stop. We were talking about like the reason that the show felt like it moved was because they didn't stop and deliver pizza for 10 minutes in the middle. Because when you have a host,
You have to do all these
they come
bits.
out and you have to do a 10-minute monologue, and then they feel obligated to do these like 5-minute bits 2 or 3 times during the show to remind people that they have a host, and so they earn that paycheck the Academy's giving them. And it literally stops the show in its tracks.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's worth it, but most of the time it's at best pleasant.
Yeah, like that key moment, that would have been what the host would have done, and that would have been the only thing that we really cared about that the host did. And so you got to give that to someone else and make it to have that moment where I'm terrified that something terrible is going to happen on live TV, and then deliver that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying.
But instead, you find out he actually is Mary Poppins.
Well,
And
yeah.
it was magic.
It was.
It was
magic.
graceful.
It was very,
very
It was
graceful.
graceful.
really like
It looked good.
he
Yeah.
could move.
Yeah. For folks interested, they ran it the same way the Creative Arts Emmys were run, more or less, where 2 or 3 people would come out, they'd do a quick 8-second, either a bit or just an introduction, and maybe they'd give 1, 2, 3 awards away, and then they'd cycle someone new in. And it just moves really smoothly. I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
Didn't mind it at all. You know what people did mind, and has immediately been, I think people had their think pieces ready, because I saw the minute that Green Book won, there were these incredibly erudite think pieces immediately
Ready to
tweeted,
go. The people were ready to rock with them.
They were
Yeah.
ready. They knew it was going to win. The prognosticators, like I said, had been tracking this. So if you guys don't know what the people that cover Oscars and awards throughout the year, basically one of the things that they do in the lead up to Oscar winning is that they off the record interview several members of the Academy to try and get a sense of how people are voting and why they're voting that way. And Roma had been the one that everyone thought was going to win. Until about 2 weeks ago, it flipped to Green Book, because when they were talking to people, a lot of people were saying one of two things. One was that the members of the Academy, a lot of them just weren't ready for Netflix to win an Academy Award, but Netflix is ready for you because they made an ad about Martin Scorsese's film right in the middle of the Oscars, and they emphasized coming to theaters.
And Netflix.
Which I thought was pretty funny and amazing, and I want to get into that. But the second piece was that that some people said off the record that the controversy surrounding the film inspired them, in fact, to vote for it, because they said, well, you're not going to tell me how I feel. And it feels to me, our friend Jacqueline Coley, who covers awards for Rotten Tomatoes, was saying on Twitter last night, you can see the Academy's dissonance within itself right now. You can see in this lineup of winners who kind of the newer members are and who the old guard is and how they're each voting. And it's like the awards themselves felt split to me in that regard. How about you guys?
No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Because what was it? think it was Black Panther.
Yeah.
Black Panther, Roma, and Green Book won
all
3, and
each.
Bohemian Rhapsody
Yeah.
won the most Oscars of the night.
Bohemian Rhapsody
That's
won
4.
4.
And so I think that like more than anything else, you know, and again, something like a Spider-Verse being able to come in and steal what most people would say is like, you know, like the Disney Pixar award. It does show that more than anything, like that there is now this new crop of people who are rising. So I remember when they changed the rules, they said that like you had to actually have been involved in some manner in the production of a movie within, what was it, 10 years or something like that? And so, and did that take place this year, or was that one of the ones that they were kind of
I think that
rolling out slowly?
I think that was in effect this year, and I'm just going to quickly run us through the way they vote for Best Picture as best I can, because it's super convoluted, and this is another reason people are thinking that Green Book ended up taking it, just because of the convoluted voting. However, again, at the party last night, I saw some people talking to Academy members who said they thought Green Book was going to take it either way. So they basically rank all of the Best Picture nominees. Academy members do that. And then Price Waterhouse, the accounting firm, begins by sorting through the Best Picture ballots, and they create piles for each film listed in the top spot. And if there is one pile in which, so there's one Roma pile and one, say, Green Book pile. And unless a single film dominates this, then more than 50% of the ballots, they remove the film that has the smallest pile as from the number 1 spot. Does that make sense so far?
Sort of.
Right?
Right,
So
so-
if Bohemian Rhapsody, it probably wasn't Bohemian Rhapsody, it was probably the favorite. But whichever film had the fewest number of votes for Best Picture, that one just gets taken out
Okay.
entirely.
Okay.
And then they
Like our movie fights tiebreaker.
yeah, and then they basically go again to ensure that the film supporters have some influence. They redistribute the ballots in that pile according to which it lists a number 2 choice. So if the ballot in that pile for A Star Is Born is a number 2 choice, that ballot is added to the Star Is Born pile. Does that make sense? That's where I know. And then
So you got 8 piles of ballots,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Each one of them ranked by, you know, number of people
Yes.
that voted that movie number 1, right?
Right.
So let's say, what was it? The favorite has the fewest number 1 votes.
Yeah, so then they're
pile
out.
gets taken out.
Yeah.
But to make sure that they don't get thrown out completely, then they look and see, well, who ranked the favorite number 2?
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then the number 2, whoever
Yeah.
ranked the favorite number 2, then it gets added to that pile.
so it's like a round
Yeah.
robin-y thing.
And then it goes
Right.
round robin again, basically
Okay.
eliminating the bottom one until you end up with one top one.
okay.
Does that sort of make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Good, because it doesn't totally to me. However, a lot of people are saying this convoluted method of voting is one of the reasons that we're getting what appear to be weird wins. I don't know if that's entirely true. Like, you're just hearing so many different versions of why people voted for Green Book. Hey, to be fair, some people might have really liked Green Book and thought that it was the best picture. I don't agree.
But a lot of people did.
But a lot of people
the
did.
public, if you look, the cinema score on Green Book was an A+.
Yeah.
Which is rare.
Yeah.
A lot of people really liked Green Book.
Sure. Yeah.
Not many people in this general vicinity, but a lot of people did.
Sure.
You know?
So let's talk about Green Book. And, well, first of all, what are your feelings about Green Book as the Best Picture winner? And can we break down why there's been this response to Green Book and a lot of people are comparing it to Crash specifically?
First of all,
Okay.
Crash, to me, is way worse than Green Book. Crash is, I think, a mess. A complete mess, misguided tonally, just the most pandering, LA-centric, thinks it's profound. Just I think that they are 2 completely different movies. I think that Green Book is the safe, traditional, conventional, take no risks, risk no deep insight, play it safe film, which is why it doesn't shock me that it won Best Picture, because it is the traditional kind of Best Picture movie. It's the kind of Best Picture movie that would have won by a landslide 20 years ago, like Driving Miss Daisy did, I'm sure.
Against Spike
So
Lee.
I saw all the hot takes saying, like, Green Book's worse than Crash. Like, I respectfully beg to differ. I don't think that they are anything alike. I think that Crash was just the most inside baseball, we live in LA, this movie's about LA, I want to pretend like I'm profound and that I have profound insights. And I think that Green Book is a very just play it by the numbers, roll it down the middle type movie. That's what I think as far as Green Book and Crash go.
So,
that's my opinion.
The pieces that I read comparing Green Book to Crash weren't necessarily talking entirely about the aesthetic value
Right.
of each, but sort of what they represent in terms of how we're making movies.
Right. And so, and again, this it speaks to the divide, because there was a time when, and maybe there was a time when this was necessary, when you did need to have, if you were going to tell, the journey about a queer black man trying to figure out places he could safely go in the South, you would want to do it through the eyes of, a white dude and make it where it becomes either equally his story or just mostly his story, and him kind of reacting and learning, it's that thing I joke about, oh, black people are people, cool, I didn't know. And so again, and that is a very safe way to tell that story. And a lot of the backlash you're seeing online is people who are like, we've done that. Now what we would like is a chance for black people or people of color or queer folks or any marginalized group to get to tell our own stories now, instead of having them be through this safe lens. Mm-hmm. And I do recognize that, in any movie, you want to have the audience insert. And so the audience insert will be a character who's like, this is a foreign world. I think it can either be something as specific as a Star Wars, or it can be, something like this, where it's like a lot of people aren't going to kind of understand this. And so we want to have a character that they can relate to. But when it comes now to the way actual cultures work and the way history works, a lot of people just don't, and I agree, don't think we necessarily need that person anymore. Mm-hmm. who comes in and is like, oh, show me how your world works. Because I don't necessarily know that is the only kind of audience that we have. And movies that have come out this year, it's shown that everybody watches movies, everybody loves movies. And so that's the major critique of Green Book that I've seen.
That's the major critique. Yeah, that's the major, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That's the major critique that I've seen as well. Joe Starr, question for you. Is there any part of you that feels sort of bad for the creators of Green Book, in the sense that they made this film, whether it's misguided or not, it's certainly, they believed that they had good intentions. They didn't ask to be nominated or win an Academy Award. And now what could be a crowning achievement in your career is not, and it will be deconstructed and evaluated and scrutinized forever hence.
I think I think the more important thing to look at is what happens next for the folks that made Green Book, because here you have a learning opportunity. I really think that. Because it also really struck me when they went up to accept their award that I think Mahershala Ali and maybe one or two other people were the only black people on stage for this film. And so I think there's a learning opportunity here. And I think, allow me to virtue signal.
Snowflake.
I think, yes, allow me to flake for just a minute. I think.
Do we have a cucking up graphic?
Do we have a Joe's a cuck graphic? I think that
we need that so bad.
I think part of art is pushing us and challenging us to learn, and just as I think their genuine hope for Green Book was to push. I've said it before, and I stick to it. I think it was a movie made for boomers, and I think and
by
and for, and that's fine. And just as I think their genuine hope was that boomers in that demographic could learn from it, I think they also have an opportunity to take a step back and go and think about exactly what Danielle just said, that you can tell these stories, but make sure that you've learned from the story that you're telling, include those voices in the process.
Yeah, and of course, this is, it's a true story. It's a story about this guy's dad. Obviously, parts of it have been fictionalized because that happens in every movie, and that's another one of the criticisms I've seen is people who are saying like, "Yo, the Shirley family is saying that like none of this, like most of this did not happen," and then some people saying, "Well, no, he specifically said don't talk to my family," and so now there's this back and forth about how accurate it is. All of these biopics are
That's nothing new.
That's
that happens
nothing new.
every time.
A lot of times they're not inaccurate to create to tell a universal truth, as people say. But what is the universal truth that's being told here? The movie is called. What's the Green Book?
So the Green Book was a book that was put together.
Oh no, I was literally about to say. I was like, I had no idea about what the Green Book was until yesterday. So my silver lining is that I'm learning.
I learned about what it was in the movie. To be honest, I didn't know what it was. That's where I kind of. I don't know. I'm very torn about it because, full disclosure, I liked the movie. I did. I don't think it's a groundbreaking piece of cinema. I thought that there were a lot more groundbreaking movies that were made last year. I thought that there were a lot more groundbreaking movies in that category that did not win last night. But I liked the movie. It was, I am, even though I was raised in the South, I never learned about the Green Book. I didn't know what it was. Now, I'm not saying that movie is the thing that's going to teach me what the Green Book is, but it was certainly a topic that I was exposed to because I saw that movie. Was it an imperfect messenger? Yes, it was not. It's not a perfect movie by any means. But I also think that it did bring some awareness to what that chapter in history was, albeit not from a native perspective as far as the writers of the film and often the POV of the film. But also again, Octavia Spencer, I believe, became the first African-American female to win an Oscar as a producer last night. Is that for Green
actually
Book, right?
had to enter a lottery to have her seat, though. She wasn't guaranteed a seat.
Okay.
At the Academy
Awards. Was she the first? I think I read that she was the first African-American female producer to win Best Picture.
Yeah, I believe so. But the point that I was trying to make with the title of the film if you can explain what it is for if you guys don't know what the Green Book is that it's called Green Book. And let's talk about what it is and then how that story might otherwise be told. And again, I don't hate this movie. But let's just talk about that.
Well, yeah, so the Green Book was a book that was compiled and put together that essentially said, because not all, there are such things as sundown towns, which it is known that if you are a person of color, that is not a town that you want to find yourself in late at night. So what the Green Book was essentially was like a travel companion saying, these are safe places for you to stop while you are traveling across the country. These are places these are restaurants that will serve you when you will not be harassed. Here are hotels you can go to. Here are whole towns that you're going to want to stay 5 miles away from. And that was a tool that would help people not to be straight up murdered back when a lot of that straight up murder was happening.
Yes. So I guess the point, and it's interesting because this is the title of the movie, I think, is significant. There's a documentary coming out about it also, by the way. I was just listening on NPR this morning. But I think that is significant because what that book is a very, just reframe the film in your mind. Same characters, same cast, but who do we start with? We start with Dr. Shirley, and then we see through his eyes what this experience is. I'm just saying imagine. We see through his eyes what this experience is, and he meets this chauffeur that has to hire, almost in an uncomfortable situation for him, because this person demonstrates some level of bias, but he still has to hire him because he knows that that's in the best interest of his safety. And then he comes to understand something, or not he comes to understand, that world is revealed through him. That, I think, is what people what I'm seeing in the criticisms is that is the way to tell that same story, but honor the title, meaning it's called Green Book, and your experience of what that means and what it is through the person that had to fucking use it. Pardon my French. I didn't know that was coming. I really didn't until it was out. That took me by surprise too. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I guess I don't know. I guess I had a different experience with this movie than most people because I didn't see the movie through the eyes of Viggo Mortensen's character because I just thought he was such a like he was so over the top. The most affecting parts of that movie for me were the things having to do with Mahershala Ali's character, and maybe that's where the criticism is, and where I'm having trouble relating is was it real or was it not? And I don't know enough about Don Shirley, but like the part of the movie that resonated and affected me the most was the scene where he is expressing his perspective when he's talking about his sexuality and his race, and he's just desperate and talking to him just like, if I'm not black enough and I'm not man enough, then who am I and where do I belong? And I loved that aspect of the movie because it's like that in that time to be part of two extremely, 10 times more than today, and today is not great, marginalized and oppressed and persecuted cultures. I thought he was fantastic. I loved that he won the Oscar because I think he was so great in that role.
Best supporting Oscar winner Mahershala Ali.
Which is why I
two-time.
I don't know. I guess I'm just struggling with it because there were some things that I did not relate to, and I absolutely see the arguments again. But there were some things in that movie that I did relate to, and I did connect to, and I didn't see it as just seeing it from one perspective. Should that movie even centered in the perspective that it was? Probably not. But it's. I just feel like there's this movement to throw the whole thing out the window.
Yeah, I think it's hard when and this is people are giving speeches. I get it. Like a lot of times it's off the cuff. They're just talking. A lot of it, and obviously a lot of these criticisms had already been happening and been happening for months, but like a lot of people really, really took umbrage to the fact that first they say it starts with Viggo, and it's like, okay, and then no one thanked Dr. Shirley during their
That's
bad.
Yeah.
That's bad.
But I think also if we just look at the structure of the film, Dan, because I hear what you're saying, and I thought those were the most effective scenes too, but let's look at a couple of things just on paper. Look who they pushed for Best Supporting Actor and look who they pushed for Best Actor. They pushed Viggo for Best Actor and Best Supporting Actor was Mahershala. And that was probably for a number of different reasons, but they themselves, the makers of this film, concluded, and the releasers of this film concluded that it was Viggo's story, and therefore he is the Best Actor, and that Mahershala's character, the story that it's about, was supporting that story. That's one thing, just factually. And then second, the structure of the story is, who do you start with? You start with Viggo. Who do you end with? You end with his family. The journey along the way really is seen through his, whether it's right or whether it's wrong. I'm just talking about the actual way the movie was structured, is seen through his lens, and there is a equivalency made in this film, and I think this is one of the pieces I read out of, I think, Variety made the point about this last night. I'm not dismissing the. I enjoyed it.
I don't disagree.
Let me just finish this just real quick. There's an equivalency made in the film between the lessons that Viggo Mortensen's character needs to learn as a someone who is bigoted, between his lessons and that of Dr. Shirley, who's emotionally aloof for very good reasons in his life. So that inherently, the structure itself, I think, is what people are. I'm not saying you at all. We're just talking about it. Yeah. I think is what's a problem in the film. Does that make sense?
No, I don't disagree with those points. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just speaking from the perspective of I've seen reaction people straight out saying, if you liked Green Book, you are racist. I have seen people say that.
Right.
And
Which is
I
crazy.
respectfully disagree because I think that Green Book is an imperfect film and a flawed film, but I do not think it is absolutely devoid of all merit in any way. Nobody seemed to have a problem with Mahershala Ali winning last night, and so I think at the very least you have a fantastic performance from him anchoring that film, and I just think that it's everything is so extremist now that let's just have a real discussion about it and not just like just
but I think that's what we're trying to do.
And I know, but that's why I'm sort of making the points that I'm making. It's like I'm not coming in saying like, guys, Green Book totally deserved this award and you're all wrong. I'm saying that I think that there are some things of value in the film, imperfect as though it may be.
Sure, yeah, and I don't think I'm not
And it's not
disagreeing
worse
with
than
that.
Crash.
And it's not worse than
Well,
Crash.
and I think that one of the great things is that we are, because now these are not discussions that we would have been having. You know, when you said like, yes, 20 years ago this would have been the perfect movie. These were not a lot of discussions that everyone as a whole would have been having.
No.
And so that's what's great is this feels to me like it's a discussion also, you know, among the Black community, things that we've talked about where we're like, you know, we're kind of done with slave movies. We have other stories now, so we got it. We know, everyone knows. Enslaved folks, we know. But, you know, then you get to have, like, the hidden figures and the other stories. And so same with this, where, at least for me, it's like, we've had that story. We've told it, some people needed it, but now it's time for us to move on to this next thing. And so I am glad that we get to have those discussions where it's like, well, where do we go next? Now that these lessons have been known and committed to film, like, what are the next stories that we tell? What's the next evolution of this?
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
I agree. And I think the point here, too, to the point you're making, is that you're right. I saw some tweets last night that were very extreme. About Green Book in terms of the broad strokes that were made about any member of the audience that even saw this film or what have you, and the moral kind of castigation that was happening around that, which I don't find particularly helpful. And we do live in a binary world where everyone's nuts, especially online and especially in the form of tweets, as we know. That doesn't help. But this is what the discussion that I think everyone is trying to have is, if people are having an issue with Green Book, let's just talk about why. And is there structurally in the making of the film, to Joe's point, changes that could be made that the very makers of the film could come out and talk about themselves? And I don't know if they will or they won't. I really don't, because that's a hard position for them to be in. They just won an Academy Award.
And they're working on their next movie, That's Amore, where someone meets a woman named Patty Amore.
I'm sorry?
With Vigo? Because that's the only way that movie's going to work. It's got to be a sequel.
What? What is the movie?
Let me look this up.
Okay, Danielle, you fact check us. You fact check us. Oh, Lordy. You guys, Hollywood. And at the end of the day, it's all very silly.
Yes.
It's like an Academy Award.
We ended up not putting it in the show, the Grouchies, but we called it the We're Going to Be Angry About This for Days Award, which is people are going to be upset about this for about 2 weeks.
Yes.
And then they're going to start focusing on what's not going to get nominated next year.
Correct. Right.
And it'll be, I forgot, Shape of Water is my second, I think number 2 on my favorite movie list last year, and I forgot that it won Best Picture. And so last night I was like, oh yeah, that's right, Guillermo, yeah, they did that.
I forgot on the way to the Oscars, we were talking about the Moonlight thing, and I forgot about last year. I was insisting that the Moonlight thing happened last year. I
2 years
completely
ago.
skipped a year. Yeah.
One of the bummers for me about last night is if Beale Street could talk, didn't really get, other than Regina, didn't really get a lot of. I was hoping that movie would get a little more attention. I just think it's beautiful.
It's gorgeous, but it's also like it's really pretty. All
pretty.
the actors do such a great job. It does. It's one of those movies where it's like it does feel like a tone poem, and I feel like that can be hard for people. But I loved it. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
My big hot take from last night, in terms of my hope moving forward, is that Spike Lee is given a show where he just roasts people. 'Cause that dude is very funny. Every time someone drives someone in a car, I lose. Is such a funny line. Like him just dancing away from.
JT is laughing.
Him dancing away from those English reporters and just being like, it's not my cup of tea! And dancing.
Right.
So he's a funny dude.
So this is from Deadline. Green Book's Nick, I can't pronounce his last name. I'm not going to be a horrible person.
Vallelonga.
Thank you. To direct his next script, That's Amore, producing with Gene Kirkwood. And I believe that it is about... it's a musical comedy about a 40-year-old bachelor who thinks his best years are behind him until he meets Patty Amore, a shy and inverted loner. Words.
Wow.
Words and things.
Words and things.
All right.
There's going to be a big pizza pie in that movie.
We will
There has to be a giant pizza pie, right?
look forward to that some more, eh?
We will.
I think.
Winning Best Picture next year.
Next year. On its way, even though it won't be out yet.
The streak.
On its way, it'll just win before it's even released. The other thing that's going to win is
The trailer for that's
Whiskey Cavalier.
Oh my
is,
God.
the most promoted television show
Of all time.
history.
The fake movie things to
fake
make us think that
ads,
they're
yeah.
real movies. Between that and Walmart,
It's
What was the one during Breaking Bad? Low Winter Sun?
Low Winter Sun.
That
yeah,
they just wouldn't shut up about Low
There
Winter
were
Sun. This is the
several
new Low Winter
throughout
Sun.
the
yeah.
break. What was the train one? Hell on
Wheels.
Wheels.
Which
Low Winter
wasn't
Sun.
awful.
And then wait, isn't there
Control
like
us.
Into the Badlands?
Into the Badlands.
Into the Badlands.
Yeah. There were
They
a lot of failed AMC shows that were being plugged during
heavily plugged.
bigger AMC
Whiskey,
shows.
Whiskey Cavalier.
guys.
Can we talk about Walmart?
Yes, let's talk about Walmart. The most important controversy
We
of the
made
night.
fun of it in the Grouchies, but like,
Weird.
who was like, hey, you know what a good campaign is? Let's gather up all of these very underpaid, underappreciated, like overworked folks in the movies and just point at them and be like, they can afford an $11 blazer from Walmart, just like our underpaid, overworked, underappreciated employees. Like, who was like, that's brilliant.
It was an
Yeah,
odd.
it was
brilliant
so
idea.
weird.
It was so
Yeah,
dumb.
Yeah.
Like, who thought that was good?
but it was also true.
yeah.
You know, that's the part that I thought was really interesting. Like it was not untrue to life. Like all of the glitz and glamour, there were 2,000 people sweating.
Yeah, folks don't know
behind
what
that
below
and
the line looks like.
working
Yeah.
18 hours a day.
Yeah,
You know, literally.
It was just weird to celebrate it in that way. Like it immediately reminded me of, and political or not, I'll never forget just this one weird clip where George W. Bush asked like a 75-year-old woman how many jobs she worked, and she was like 3, and he was like, "Isn't that uniquely American?" Like that was a big clap line, and like this is years ago, but like that's what it reminded me
know,
of.
but that's-
That's what it reminded me of. Where it's like,
It is.
these people are scratching out a living and never appreciated, and Walmart, like it was just like a weird take.
But also true.
Yeah.
But also true.
But it should have been a sad
I was a
commercial.
PA for a long time. I didn't shop at Walmart. Nothing wrong with shopping at Walmart,
not
but
at
this
all.
idea of like
I've gotten some of my
PAs shop
best
at
deer
Walmart.
hunting T-shirts from Walmart.
Target all the way.
There was a time when I lived.
Too expensive now.
Target's getting expensive. I used to do real quick. I used to work at these like weird little villages, like touristy spots, and you would travel for 2 hours if you
What?
wanted to leave. I've had a weird
a
life.
village where?
I did one in Denali National Park where I lived in something called like the Village, which is it's just like the name of some fancy like hotels, and,
Oh,
but it's
okay.
like rustic and whatever. And
Yeah.
I was in Aspen for a little bit, and then if
Who
you
are
wanted
you?
to, I don't know, man. I followed a boy. Don't do it.
JT from the booth is making the show for me today.
But yeah, so you would go like 2 hours, and that was right.
right
Ryan.
on the couch.
Yeah, you'd go for 2 hours, and Walmart would be the store that you would go to, and you would go and you would get your things because that was like the only place that was around. And so like, yeah, I get it, but it is another one of those weird things where it's like, oh, look at her feeding people the food that she can't afford to eat. We're gonna brush her shoulders off now.
Yeah. Ugh. Very upsetting.
It reminded me,
Weird.
In one of my worst day jobs in LA, where everyone was treated very bad and not paid very much, like their millionaire
talking
president
about
of the company,
ScreenJunkies?
yeah, definitely ScreenJunkies. Our millionaire CEO would come in. No, our millionaire CEO would come in and give us the leftovers of his lavish house parties, and we were all emailed instructions to like implicitly thank him, and it was like that's the kind of thing it reminds me of, where it's like, yay, scraps, like, yes.
That is like
That is
Dickensian
awful.
levels
That
of
really is,
classism.
like,
It was very
that
bad.
is
That is
genuine. That's the perfect
Isn't that what
description.
Cersei Lannister did in
Yeah,
Game of Thrones?
yeah.
Wasn't that that's like
Yeah.
Was he
Joffrey's
trying
wedding
to herd
types?
you into a sept?
Let me set the scene for you, because it all just came back to me, and now I'm traumatized again.
Are we doing worse jobs? Should we just do worse jobs?
So we had to, we were given their scraps, and we had to be like, thank you, and he came in, and then we were all given music sheets, and we had to sing the song Tiny Bubbles to
No,
him, because
shut
he
up.
loved the song Tiny
Did you
Bubbles.
work for Kim Jong
Is
Un?
that what's going on?
Close.
That can't.
I
no.
have to know.
Anytime I hear tiny bubbles now, I freak out. Like, I get very upset.
Joe.
I have to know.
Oh my god.
It was the weirdest.
Let's talk about worst boss moments.
That might be mine.
Is that the worst?
I don't think we want to do that, Roth.
We're all very tired.
Let's talk about worst boss moments. Well, I was in a CVS parking lot, not sure what my life was going to do next.
Let's. Rami Malek fell off the stage. That was my favorite.
What cameraman missed Rami Malek falling off
If
the
you go
stage?
to the Hollywood Reporter's
my
Twitter feed, they got a video of it now, so
All right,
you can
go
watch
see
it
it.
happen.
Go watch that.
Oh,
Thank you, Billy.
Oh, thank you, Billy.
Go watch Rami Malek fall off the stage. He was all right, right?
He's fine. He's
If
fine.
that
He's
had
fine.
been on the broadcast, I would have had my bingo.
Yeah.
That's true.
Oh.
Someone falls off the stage.
It was on my bingo card. It was a very key bingo for me.
Well, we'll all live with regret.
no, good call.
4 hours of sleep, the filter goes away.
We've gone just about as long as the telecast, so we'll wrap it up. I just want to leave today celebrating my blissful ability to snap things out of existence in my own mind. Like anything that happened here today that I didn't like, it no longer exists. But you know what I do like? You.
Tiny bubbles.
Thank you for time. Don't do it to yourself. Don't do it to yourself. Why would you do that to yourself? We're gonna go shop.
At Walmart.
Target.
Target.
We can do Target.
Yeah.
Is there a Walmart near here?
Yes, they opened one in
Yeah.
Burbank.
Oh.
All right.